No, it never reports accurately how many's viewing. Now, is it going?
Yes. I'm not going to be able to do just the same.
Doesn't matter. I'm not getting anything. Is it showing as being live?
Yes.
Right, here we are.
Hang on.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. I had to delete that one. The last video, everything went pear-shaped. I don't know what happened with the phone. So we're going to start again and try and talk about what we just talked about. We'll keep it shorter tonight because I don't have much battery left on my phone. What we were discussing is about homeless people being called bludgers, and how that's not the case because you suffer so much being out on the streets by critters, by mosquitoes, by lining up for meals, by waiting for places to sleep, and it's just a life of misery and a life of extreme suffering and a life of poverty and a life of negativity and everything else. So you can't really say that homeless people are bludgers. It's more the corporate people that are sitting behind their desk getting paid the big bucks doing nothing that are the bludgers that are bludging off the system, not the poor homeless person that's being paid pittance for being on the streets living in shocking conditions. So, and then we were talking about the services around Adelaide, and I was saying how difficult I'm finding it and really challenging to work with people when I'm getting shut out by the organisations because of privacy laws. It's very, very difficult. Oh dear, so sorry we had to delete that video, but there was a huge stuff up with the phone. Chris, out of everything we've discussed, number one, is there any questions out there? If anyone's watching that's got any questions for Chris or for myself, please ask them. I'll see them and then Chris can answer them.
I mean, I think we've already been over everything that people have seen live now. Maybe just not have this one uploaded to YouTube, and we'll just do the live.
It's a shame that we lost that live because we've got
all the people who are watching out there, sure, you've heard it all. You've seen what we've put on live, so we can't really go back over that again.
No. What
I have to
would
speak
you
from my
like to
heart.
say? I think if you had the minister's ear, for instance, that was responsible for homelessness, what would you say to her?
I would say everything that I've said in the previous, 4 or 5 videos that we've done, everything that we've said, I would go back over the whole lot. It's something I discuss with people, and all of those subjects that we've discussed. I have difficulty going back over them on a live, but yeah, just every single aspect of homelessness. From the housing to, what I believe could happen, the difficulties of being homeless, what we have to go through each day, to get those showers, to get that food, the whole fight or flight thing, all the subjects we've talked about. That's what I would put to any minister who would give me the time of day to listen. But when I'm a little bit tired tonight, to be honest. You know me, this is something I'm passionate about, something I know more than anything about in my life. I know homelessness because I've been doing it for 17 years. And I know the gaps in the system. I know what the services are doing, what they're not allowing, what the Adelaide City Council is not allowing. I know what needs to be done. I know what needs to be provided for the homeless to make their lives on a daily basis that bit easier.
So why aren't they actually talking to people like you, Chris, that do have the experience, that can actually sit down and lead them in the right direction? Why aren't these people in power sitting down and talking to people like you that do have the lived experience? I mean,
they're not interested in the homeless.
I see the minister's meetings sometimes, and she thanks people for their lived experience, and yet I don't think
they don't.
Boards and panels have been homeless.
No, they haven't. I looked at. I don't want to stereotype anyone. This is the problem. But the post I saw the other day of Homelessness SA, that's what they called themselves. It was the board of Homelessness SA, And me and my partner here were looking at it. I said to her, look at that. There's an elderly woman there who looks fairly well-to-do. She looks like she's rich. You know, she was there in all her lovely clothes, and there was no way she was homeless. And there was a guy in a suit. And I was like, well, there's no way he's homeless. These people haven't had lived experience. They've not been homeless. They're not interested in someone like me. Like, you know, when I was out there earlier this year and for the past 10 years, before Peter Malinauskas, I was emailing these people. I was going to their social media accounts. I was sending them messages, and I was getting blocked. And I'm sure they have people who do all that for them that were actually blocking me. But they're not interested. So I tried to go along to walk a mile in my boots to see the Premier of the state. No, they're interested in the photo opportunity to look like they're seen to be doing something. They're not interested in going out and speaking to the homeless people. God forbid they do that.
How does it make you feel when all of these suits go out and sleep outside for one night to raise money?
They go into
in sympathy for homeless.
Yeah, that they go into a secure location like the Adelaide Oval, behind closed doors with security, and sleep out for one night on a night that's not freezing cold. You know, they've.
Well, it has actually been raining.
I do know that there was one night that rained on them, but you can't tell me that they hadn't, you know, before they arrived there that night, they hadn't sat down and had a good meal somewhere, come from their warm space.
Well, that's a good point.
You know,
you can't possibly know what night.
You can't come out for one night and go, oh, I experienced what it was like to sleep out for one night. No, you didn't. You were in a secure location with 100 other people, or however many attended.
Well, I mean, you know, a pure example is the friend of mine that's a reporter that contacted me. He spent, I think, 2 or 3 nights out on the street.
Luke, and he got plenty of flack for it.
And he said, oh, I can't do this anymore.
No, but he got plenty of flack for that, where people say to him, like, oh, you think because you go out and sleep for 2 or 3 nights.
But fantastic that he gave it a go. You know, I admire him for it, because he really gave it a red hot go. But he, you know, realised just how difficult it was.
Yeah, but to realise how difficult it is,
just in a few nights.
But you need to go and stand in the line at Fred's van, and you need to do that for a week.
Yeah. But no, I meant just sleeping out. It's not that easy. People think that it's just like camping. It's like on holidays, but it's not.
It's not at all. But if you prepare yourself for that sort of experience, and you know, if you just go and go, right, I'm just going to make it like I'm home, so I'm going to go out with nothing, and I'm going to throw a sleeping bag over my shoulder and a bag with some clothes, then you're probably going to have a close experience for a few nights. But you need to truly go and experience what homeless people are experiencing. You need to go and stand in a line with a whole heap of violent, mentally ill, alcohol-fueled people.
Go and spend a night in the drunk tank. You know, spend a couple of nights in the drunk tank, not out in a comfortable cardboard box. And actually go to, you know, a drug rehab place and sit there in the waiting room and all these sorts of things, to really have a good idea of you know, what goes on. In the emergency room on a Saturday night, when, you know, all of the people that are affected by hallucinogenic drugs come in and are violent and all the rest of it, you know.
So you really need to come out of your home and experience 1 or 2 nights. It's not like you're worn down from it.
No.
You know, you're not mentally drained.
No.
You know, whereas compared to someone who's been doing it for months to a year, for several years.
It's an accumulative effect,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It's an accumulative.
Yeah.
You know, like in your first year, you can still change your circumstances, and you're still not worn down yet.
Yeah.
You know, you can get up and experience something new, like.
The longer you're out there.
And I know people out there listening to this probably wouldn't understand this, but you can stay in one city for 6 to 12 months, and then you've just had enough, so you get up and you go somewhere else. And because it's fresh and new, you've still got some get up and go in you, you know. But once you've done it all and seen it all...
Why do you go interstate? Does it give you that bit of a mystery and a bit of respite from the norm, and does it provide that little bit of excitement, something new? It breaks up sort of like the monotony of it.
It breaks up the monotony, but it's also the services. You know, like you going to Melbourne, you get there and the abundance of services and how good life is for a homeless person, and you see that, you know, and so that gives you a huge break to be able to not have to suffer
as much.
Like, you know, the abundance of food for a homeless person, the fact that you can go to 14 different places for a shower or food, you know, that you could have such a fantastic breakfast.
But here, I must admit, we have too many people have the mentality that if you provide too much, you're actually enabling people and you're encouraging them to keep that lifestyle.
No, I've said this before on the video.
Rubbish.
I've said this before in these videos. That to make your own day better, to go somewhere and be able to have, like in Adelaide, for example, I cannot, you know, get bacon and eggs for breakfast in Adelaide. I can't get, you know, a nice bowl of yogurt. God forbid that the charities would give anything like that, but you go to Melbourne and they give that in Melbourne. You know, you're able to go somewhere and make your own toast as much as you want. You can have 20 slices of toast if you want. Like St. Peter's in the morning, they get so much donated bread in the Coles truck that comes arriving with meat patties and steaks and onions and all these things, and it's all cooked up on a barbecue. There's bowls of fruit on a table, you know, as much milk as you possibly need to make coffees. You go to a centre for lunch, like the living room in Hosier Lane, to be able to pull a lasagna out of the fridge and make it. The mental lift that gives you to be able to think. Like somebody who is malnutritioned can't even process their thoughts properly. It starts to break your body down to where every day becomes the fight for survival.
Yeah.
Like here in Adelaide, it's a fight for survival here in Adelaide. You're malnutritioned here in Adelaide. The food is not, you know, there is not 10 places a night that the Vinnie's vans are going that you can both choose a nice peaceful place that gives you the respite from all the violence that you would see in Adelaide at Fred's Van, and also to collect enough food where you can really fill yourself up with good food and you're not just getting some soggy sandwiches where the bread is week-old bread and the sausages have been frozen for 12 months in advance.
Yeah.
You know, because
disgusting.
people don't understand that. You think we're getting fresh sausages? We're not getting fresh sausages. They're getting all those sausages from Food Bank. Now, Food Bank are getting, I think the figure was they're getting 3 tons each week of just sausages. And that all goes into freezers. And they break. People would think this is unrealistic, but it's not. Right? It's quite real. And those sausages are then distributed to all of the different charities everywhere. But those sausages, because they're such a large supply, they're put into freezers, and the ones that have been sitting the longest are pulled out first and given, and the freshest ones are put back in there, and they're coming out. So you're always getting the old sausages, and they've been frozen for 12 months, and then they're cooked in a facility somewhere that's, you know, 10 kilometres away. So by the time they get to you, they're cold, and they're no longer hot, or they're barely hot. The bread is all soggy. The sandwiches, they give you a little bag with a couple of sandwiches. They're soggy, and the lettuce and the tomatoes falling out the bottom, and the bottom of the bag's broken.
God.
You know, you're eating. The food here is disgraceful compared to going over there and being able to get pies and pasties and sausage rolls and hot dogs and wingdings and hamburgers, because it's all that food left from the lunch trucks during the day that are being donated to St. Vincent de Paul's. You know, so you can.
We're really on the back foot here in SA, aren't we?
We are. We're on the back foot. You know, but you go.
And our biggest charity closes at lunchtime.
That's right.
After lunch.
That's right. And so then you're going between 12 o'clock and 7 p.m. on a weeknight, and 6 p.m. on a weekend, but 7 p.m. on a weeknight, and you're just hungry. And if you haven't got the money, then you're going hungry till that time of night.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I've said the importance of giving to people who are begging.
Even a hot cup of coffee as well, you know. And we were talking about before we had to cut the video off about the elements you have to face. Like, you know, just this last week I had a guy where the rain came down really hard one day and one night, and he got no respite from the rain. He didn't have a tent. He was just sleeping under a tarpaulin, and everything he owned got wet, including the clothes that he had on. So when he came out to get my meal on Saturday night, he was beside himself. He said, "Everything's wet. I've got nothing dry to wear. Everything's wet. My thing's wet." And I just looked at him and sort of laughed a bit. I thought he was joking, and he said, "I'm not joking, Sonia. This is the truth." And I said, "Really?" Everything he had was wet, and he actually was getting virtually flown down the side of the thing into the river almost.
But that's where homeless people will
He
eventually...
had nowhere to go to get dry.
But eventually they'll change their own circumstances.
Yeah, everything was
you know,
closed.
you get sick of that very quickly.
So the only thing he had was a hot meal from me, and I gave him some hot noodles and some hot coffee. But that's all he had. He had to go back to his wet tent, his wet bed, with his wet clothes and everything wet, and try and survive the night. And it was cold.
Yeah, and this is the reason that I bought the car for. You know, I got sick of having to wait out in the wet and the cold every night, having wet blankets, having wet clothes, and I wanted to have somewhere warm and dry, so I bought the cheapest car I could find out of my Centrelink loan. Yeah. You know, but you then...
And there's nowhere you can go. There's no public showers in the middle of the night where you can go and have a nice hot shower.
No, not at all.
Or, you know, try and dry your clothes or something like that. There's just nothing.
And so, you know, this is where changing location actually helps. You know, a lot of homeless people find themselves ending up in places like Darwin, you know, or Surfers Paradise. Like, there's a crazy amount of people sleeping in places where they think that the weather might be better.
Yeah, that's true, and it's not. They find out it's not so because you've got the rains in Queensland.
Yeah.
The tropical.
It's actually a little bit worse.
Well, what we were talking about too before the video went skew-iff was the amount of things that you have to put up with as a homeless person. It's a life of suffering because you've got to put up with the critters that are outside, like your foxes, your rats, your mice. I've had reports of mice crawling over people in the middle of the night. I've had reports of rats eating through suitcases and eskies and all that sort of stuff.
And all I commented on was the mosquito problem that I face.
The mosquitoes, you've got, the snakes, all of the ants, bull ants. We've got a lot of bull ants, those big ants that bite, nasty bites all around this city, and I come across them quite often.
I do know about this. I have my partner here can tell you this. Not that anyone wants to know this on this video. I stood in a nest of them the other day at Mawson Lakes Interchange, and I didn't know I was standing in the nest until they were all the way up my legs everywhere, and I got bitten.
They are nasty.
Yeah, the bites are quite nasty.
Oh, they are. So you've got all these things. I mean, I've had phone calls saying a fox just took my lunch. Nothing surprises me anymore with the critters, because you leave the tiniest little bit of food laying around and there's lots of critters that'll come and eat it.
Here's a good one. Imagine being sick in the middle of the night.
Oh, no.
Yes. That's something that, normal people don't realise this sort of thing. I hate to say normal people, but they don't realise. As a homeless person, when you get sick, you don't have a bed to go back and lie in or a toilet that's close by. You have no way if all of a sudden you're... what do you do?
I've had somebody...
You have a gutter down there.
Yeah, I've had somebody use their esky as a vomit bag.
Yeah.
And then try and, dispose of it the next day.
Yeah, when I was out there, I threw up in my swag. I threw up on my swag. It's not nice.
And then if you've got the diarrhea as well, and you're like 600 metres from a toilet,
even something as simple as a headache in the middle of the day, you haven't got a place to go and lie down and fall asleep safely.
No.
So you can get the headache to subside for a while. It's not nice.
No, it's not. It's not good at all. It's a terrible life.
It is.
It's a terrible, terrible life of degradation, lack of dignity, and it's suffering. And it annoys me when people say, "Oh, homeless people are just bludging off the system." You can't live in such appalling conditions and live in such suffering and be called a bludger. That's just lunacy.
But that's the attitude of people.
We need to get rid of the stigma around homelessness. Not all homeless people are junkies. Not all homeless people are lazy bludgers. Not all homeless people have mental health issues, even though there's a lot of them do. But as you say, some of them don't have when they come out, but they develop along the way because it's so soul destroying and such a life of suffering that it does affect you in every way, physically, mentally, and every other way you can imagine it affects you. It shortens your lifespan. I read the other night that it takes 30 years off your life to be long-term homeless.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if they had that figure on it. You know, I wouldn't personally.
That's a significant amount.
Yeah, personally,
of
I
life
wouldn't think it
expectancy.
would be that long, but you know, because
it's so rough on the body.
But I've got to say, it's probably about right. You know, taking my partner into town, you know, to talk to friends who are still homeless, and a lot of these guys that I talk to are in their 50s, but you would swear, by looking at them, you would swear that these guys are in their 60s or 70s. And you can see that they haven't, like one guy I know, he's in his 50s, and you can see that he hasn't got long left. His body is so worn down. You know, we know one day he's going to be found in the city library, because he goes to the library every day. And we know he's going to be found there because there's sort of a bit of a wager going in town about this guy, unfortunately. You know, it's sad. But his body is so worn down from being homeless for 32 years, I think he's been homeless for. And after that amount of time, you know, it's destroyed his body for someone who's 57 years old and looks like he's in his 70s.
Yeah, look, the other thing that gets to me sometimes too is the nastiness of residents out there. I mean, I've had several incidences in the last year where particularly elderly residents who don't like it if a homeless person moves in at the end of their street, and they absolutely harass and bully the homeless persons, try and steal from them, go through their stuff, you know, tell them to get out, you don't belong here, and all this sort of stuff. Like, homeless people don't have any rights at all. And that gets to me too, because these people are very ignorant. They have no idea what it's like to be homeless, and what if it was one of their kids. And they just get their back up and start lying and causing trouble and ringing council all the time and being real nuisances.
Yeah, but that's a not in my backyard thing.
Yeah, it's disgusting, and that gets to me too. And we've had quite a lot of that lately, where people actually literally make up lies and ring council to make up lies about homeless people because they don't want them living in the area. And I really wish that people would be a little bit more compassionate and understanding, and try and help rather than be part of the problem.
But you know, you see that, and it's unfortunate, but it's like, you know, I could say, look at North Adelaide, an area full of elite people who do not want any of the what would be the word here, the degradation of society. You know, they don't want that dragging their happiness and their joy of what they've got down. And that's not quite the words for it, but people don't want to see, you know, they don't want to see it, the dregs of society. I don't quite know the words I want to use for it here, but...
Misfits.
No, not misfits, it's more the...
I've heard lots of different terms. Nuts.
I think the word I want to use is the degradation.
So many different ridiculous names that people give homeless people. It's terrible. Even the homeless people themselves give each other names. It's terrible.
Oh, of course.
I say, don't say that.
I know, we do it quite often, unfortunately.
Don't say that. But, you know, it's part of the culture, you know, of that camaraderie. I think it's done with affection, with homeless people towards one another, where the community, I don't think it's done with as much affection.
Well, at first it starts out as affection, but then it ends, the affection ends eventually if you feel you're not getting through to somebody with your own... You know, trying to uplift another homeless person. So
what we were saying, which was really important before the video went off before, and we had to delete that one, was why aren't the ministers and people in the industry actually sitting down and talking to people like you who have had long-term lived experience and been homeless in several states of this country? Why the hell don't they sit down with you and do what I'm doing, I guess, and pick your brain
and my simple answer to that,
from you?
My simple answer to that was, well, they're not going to speak to homeless people. They have no interest in speaking to homeless people. And
yet I did say to you as well beforehand that a lot of people that work in homelessness teams in councils are watching these videos, and they are keeping what you say in the back of their head when they're out there dealing with people.
People who have truly had the lived experience, people like me, and I don't want to sound arrogant because one of my pet peeves is arrogance, but people like me and myself, we could change it all overnight. We know what needs to be done. and we know how to go about it.
And yet there's panels and panels of experts that are supposed to have lived experience that on these boards and committees and everything, and probably none of them have ever been homeless.
You know, look at that list of houses or units that come from Housing Estate through Freedom of Information on how many places were ready for allocation. You remember that list? And it had houses under maintenance, houses ready for allocation. And when Luke from the Advertiser went through that, he said he found more than me. I found 307 places on that list in all suburbs of Adelaide that were ready for allocation. And people are there in cars and in motels, women with children. And it's like, well, why aren't we housing people? Housing SA's excuse is we haven't got the staff. That was their excuse back then.
Errors.
Okay? Yeah. So we haven't got the staff.
I mean, hang on. I mean, when I tried to get you housed at the Housing Trust, they made up a heap of stories about you, and they told us that they couldn't tell us why you weren't allowed to have a house, but there was...
They couldn't tell you because
there was issues with you from the past, but they couldn't tell us what they were.
But they had none. This is why they...
But they made up stuff.
But they couldn't tell you because they had none. Yeah. And then, in their wisdom, because they knew they had been called out on it, they turned around and they housed me in a week. They housed me in 1 week. I'm on category 1 for 2 weeks. Luke comes out, does his piece in the Advertiser. You speak to him. A week later, I'm housed. They got called out on their rubbish and realised that they got a man on the street.
As I said, they tried to make up a heap of stories about you and so we can't house him because of all these reasons. But they weren't prepared to tell us what the reasons were. And when we told you to go in there and find out what the reasons were, they wouldn't tell you either.
No, they wouldn't tell me my own information. They couldn't.
And it was about
because they had nothing. They had nothing to give.
Oh dear.
You know?
So there's a lot of systematic failures that are keeping people on the streets. It's not the fact. I think people believe that mass immigration's a problem and we don't have enough housing. We do have enough houses.
There's enough. There's plenty.
There's too many owned by billionaires.
They took 8 months. They took 8 months to get a place here filled. 8 months it sat vacant for. Perfectly good place sat vacant for 8 months.
That's what I mean. Why would it sit vacant?
Because they don't have the resources and the staff to come out and allocate the place to somebody.
Yeah, that's just...
you have to have meetings with the person first, and then it has to go through a bureaucratic process and paperwork.
These places agencies are really severely under-resourced and underfunded to do their job properly.
How many people does it take to meet someone at a place and sign a piece of paperwork and give them the keys? How many people does it take?
Look, there's a lot of issues with tradespeople too. I mean...
I know 300 places, 307 places I counted, and Luke said he counted over 360, ready for allocation. So they're not places that need maintenance. And now, today, I'm guessing that list would still have at least 250 of those places ready for allocations.
To be totally honest with you, Chris, working with all of these agencies, I have discovered that there's a lot of people working in these agencies that shouldn't be. Because they have a very negative aspect and a very negative opinion of homeless people. It's
simply, again, not in their interest.
And
for every client they lose some funding.
They even go as far, now these are just social workers sitting behind desks, but they even go as far as diagnosing people.
Of course they do. Hutt Street Centre is just a government-funded mental health care drop-in centre. People think it's a charity. No, it is not.
It's crazy. I've had people from housing trusts knock somebody back for a program because they were a junkie, and yet the guy had been clean for 6 years. They diagnosed people, and then what we had to do was we had to go in there and say, this you're wrong about this person. Yes, he had that lifestyle many years ago, but not now. But what it was it was a 40-degree day or 38-degree day. He had to catch 2 buses and run to get to the appointment. So by the time he got there, he was sweating. He was hot and he was puffing and panting. So they immediately said, oh, he's a junkie, without not knowing that he was just had to catch 2 buses. So they actually sit there and diagnose people and say, we're not helping you. You're a drug addict or something like that.
It doesn't matter what a person is. It doesn't matter what a person is.
But it's not okay for them to do that.
No, it's not. But the person needs to be housed. It's about getting people housed. But the biggest issue here is the fact that, and I know for a fact, and I know you do too, it's about the fact that this is a rotisserie, it's a carousel, and each client is worth a certain dollar in funding, and it's not in their interest to
no wonder
lose
people
clients.
don't want to engage when you go through and you've been on the streets for 20 years and you've had 16 promises given to you over that period that you're going to get a house and you're still out on the street.
You give up. You give up.
You give up, and you don't want to keep going through that cycle. And each person that comes along, you can't be bothered engaging with them because you know what's going to happen.
You just stop engaging. You no longer. You don't.
Exactly.
You don't even bother engaging.
And I find that when I go out, you know, I think the only thing that gets me in the door with homeless people is they know that I am getting people housed, that I am one of the genuine ones. But you know, if I was belonging to an agency that had promised them all these things before, I would not expect people to engage with me. Why would they?
That's, you know, look at Anwar. They come out and they promise you something. Now you've heard it all before. And so 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, 3 months goes by and you just go, whatever.
Well, it just
I'm not going to bother, whatever.
It just took, I think, 8 or 9 weeks for one of my people to be assigned a caseworker after I took him out there to get signed up. And, you know, and that's him having a really strong advocate. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that don't have that really strong advocate that wait a lot longer than that. But I tend to just be like a bit of a bulldog and keep going at them until I get what I want.
Yeah.
But there's so many problems within the system, and that's why we've got so many homeless people. I mean, if you, to me, there's one simple thing that could solve all this, and that is to bring in a law to stop people from using real estate as an investment.
Yeah, I was going to say,
when you talk about everybody.
With what you just said, 20 seconds ago, about why we have so many homeless, I was almost going to jump in there and say, actually, the reason we have so many homeless people is it's a multitude.
You're a commodity.
It's a multitude of reasons. Like we are about to face unless we're on the verge of a whole new system, which is a whole other thing. It's a new financial system that we are going to see because we are going to need to see it. We've watched a lot of videos in the last couple of days on this. The amount of people who are going to become homeless, like we've so far been facing a crisis of migration, a lack of housing, the housing affordability, like the median house price in, say, Sydney, Melbourne or Adelaide. Yeah. You know, like in
the
Melbourne,
rungs of the rungs of the ladder have been taken away.
Like the current median house price in Sydney is about 1.5 to 2. It's 1.5 to 2 million.
Yeah.
They're tipping in the next year it's going to go over 2 million. In Melbourne, it's just gone over 1 million. In Adelaide, it's closing in on 1 million. So you've got things like the median house price and the affordability of what it takes to get a 5% deposit. And now, if a house was only, say, $650,000 to get that 5% deposit takes so many years. But once you start talking 750, 850, 950,000, and then the wage you're on, the average wage, the bank is going to look at that average wage and go, well, if you're only earning 55,000 a year, and even if you've got your 5% deposit, we've still got to give you that 5% deposit. We've still got to give you $850,000, $900,000, right? That's what we're lending you. You can't afford to pay that back over this certain amount of time. You're going to die. You're going to die trying to pay that back. You look at 50, 60 years ago, though, Chris. There was always entry-level housing. There was, but now there isn't. There isn't.
The first 3 rungs of the ladder.
If you look at renting, and the average rental for a 2-bedroom unit now is upwards of 450 to. That's right, but renting a 2-bedroom unit is $450 to $650.
And the other thing we need to do is we need to lift people out of poverty. While we've got people living in poverty, the situation's going to get worse.
That's going to get worse
because we need to lift people out of poverty. If we did that, that would solve a lot of issues.
Unfortunately, that's going to get worse. We've been watching a lot of videos on AI and the jobs that's going to take over the next 5 years foreseeably, and the amount of people, where the unemployment rate is going to end up. And so what that unemployment rate will do, it will actually make more people homeless. People simply won't be able to afford their rent, afford their mortgages. No. So we are going to see a skyrocketing rate with the homeless. We're going to see more people, more working class people than ever before. We're already seeing that. You know, look at Brisbane in the last few years. In Musgrave Park, it's not been people who are suffering from mental illness or drugs. We're talking about working class people who are living in a tent in that park, going to work still every day and coming back to a tent. We're going to see that in the masses because the people aren't going to be in jobs anymore. And that's not on a lot of people's radar yet, but it's just starting to, people are just starting to wake up to this. And we were watching a video today from a gentleman saying, he said, and this was an extremely rich guy who was part of the whole introduction of AI, 30 or 40 years ago, the very basic AI before it was even known. And he said, it's not the immigration that you've got to worry about. He said, it's the jobs that are going to be lost in the future. That's where you need to worry. And I said, look at this. This is spot on. It's not the immigration.
It's the same old, in my opinion, where you've got the billionaires getting rich off the backs of the poor.
Exactly right.
And we continue to pander to these billionaires in all walks of life. The mining industry, the finance industry, the big banks, for instance, the miners.
But this is such a multi-pronged subject, delving away from homelessness. But the end result's going to be more homelessness.
It is going to create more homelessness. And these billionaires are getting richer and richer and
eventually
richer,
we're going to see
we're getting poorer.
We're going to see a universal basic income eventually, where because no one will be working, all the jobs will be done. Like you look at all the entry-level jobs now, like data jobs, anything that's paper in, paper out, like writing in, writing out, from doctors to lawyers, people in IT, all sorts, a whole broad range of jobs are all going to go by the wayside because they can be done cheaper and better than any person can possibly do them. If you can have the job done by somebody who you don't have to pay, and it can do it 100 times better than any human, any data entry job.
It's really scary. I mean, I was saying to my dad today when I was taking him to an appointment, I said, Dad, wouldn't it be nice if we could go back to the 60s where life was really simple?
Of course. I say this quite a lot, but it's unrealistic to say it.
Life was so simple back then.
Yeah.
You went to work, you came home, you had your little veggie patch or your gardening, and, Mum stayed home and raised the kids. Dad went out to work. And it was a whole different world back then. And I think in some ways, or in a lot of ways, it was a better world.
But it's
everybody looked out for one another.
But unfortunately, to say that sort of thing, to say that, I stayed at home and done the work.
Not done the housework, but she raised the kids. A lot of women didn't work back then because they didn't have to.
And we live in a very progressive world now, but I've slowly started to realise the lie that's been sold, and it is a lie that's been sold to bring about more consumerism.
Yes, yeah. And at the end of the day, homeless people are a commodity. If we got rid of all the homeless tomorrow, there'd be a lot of charities that would go out of business, and as you say, there's a lot of people out there that are directors and that are academics that are putting in their pockets millions and millions and millions of dollars on the back of homeless people.
Exactly right.
So, that merry-go-round's not going to stop anytime soon because too many people are filling their pockets and making money off the backs of homeless people.
Cut Street Centre.
Well, there's probably a lot.
Out of, what is it, $12 million? Out of $12 million, $7 million of it is going straight into their, what was the, on the graph I sent you? Let me have a quick, may I have a quick?
Yeah, go for it. I'm not sure, but, it's really tough, struggling homeless people, and
get this out to the public.
I just want people to think about homelessness differently. And what if it was your son or your daughter or your uncle or your auntie that was out there on the streets? It's a tough life, and I think we need to get rid of the stigma involved, and it's a community problem and a community fix, and we all need to do our little bit to help the problem. But I have a few people give monetary donations to me, and the reason they do that is because they know that every cent that they're giving me goes towards a homeless person. They're not paying somebody's wages.
Here we go. So we're going to look at this here. We are going to look at this, people.
hang on.
to any viewers here.
Chris, that's what you're seeing. That's what everybody's seeing. So put your phone up to, that's it.
So that's what we're seeing. Now, what this is this is their financial overview of Hutt Street Centre.
Watch this so you know where your phone is.
And I need to look at this here. And so their total revenue, Hutt Street Centre's total revenue is $10,843,696. Now, what you have here is the revenue from government, other revenue, revenue from donations, and I'll just put that up there so everyone can see it. Okay. And their expenses down here, further in the bottom. And so if we go to the next one, their expenses. Okay, so 69.30% of Hutt Street Centre's expenses in the light blue shaded area go to employee expenses. Now, if you do your maths and you work out 69.30% of that 10 million, what was it there?
10 million something.
Of the $10,843,696, it comes to just over $7 million going towards employee expenses. So then you go, well, where is the rest of the money going? Now, that money that is coming in here in the revenue is revenue from donations and requests. So requests from Hutt Street Centre for donations and the donations they're getting from other people make up 54.15%. So it's actually a majority of Hutt Street Centre's intake, their revenue is coming from donations. But 69.30% is going towards the employee expenses. So it's not going towards the homeless. Make that clear. We are not receiving that money in any shape or form in the way of services from Hutt Street Centre. And so then the other expenses that you look at here, where am I here? The expenses.
Yeah, Chris is getting all this information from the ACNC website, where
Yes,
you can go and search
yes.
for any charity and pull up the financials and all of the charity's history.
Yes,
and
it
all the
is
rest of
from the, there it is there, up there, if we look at it there. And right here, you can't quite see it, but right here, it says, up at the top, sorry, up in the white there, right there, in the top in the right there, this is the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission, who keep records on all the charities. And if only people knew, if only people in the public arena knew that Hutt Street Centre are keeping us all on a rotisserie roundabout and we are worth a dollar amount to them in funding. Yet they get majority of their funding through donations from the public, and the rest is coming from pretty much government areas.
The government do give them a lot of money, yeah.
The government give them a hell of a lot of money. I think it's a ridiculous amount that each client is worth in funding through that, you know, that name they take. Chris Adams got a tower. Chris Adams took a shower.
It's interesting that just recently they put up a post online saying that they would soon have to start knocking people back because they just don't have enough resources and funding to be able to feed anyone else.
Wow, if the state government decided that, you know, hey, we're going to allow other food services into the city, or we're going to allow another charity to have showers, you know, why doesn't the Salvation Army in Perry Street have showers for? Why does no other service? Why is Hutt Street Centre and Westcote the only two services in the whole entire city with showers? Now, if you've got
well, I believe
you've only got you've only got 4 or 5 hours a day that they're open. You've only got 3 showers, and you've got 200 men and 100 women. You've got 300 people trying to take showers in that time. It's almost impossible. You need more showers.
Yeah.
And this is why you asked the question before going to other states. Well, you can go to St Mary's House of Welcome. You can go to Sacred Heart St Kilda. You can go to the Living Room in the City. You can go to the Salvation Army in Burke Street, 614. You've got so many different places. You can go to Dudagala on Elizabeth Street. The showers are everywhere. So you've got they have seen it in this way. They've said, if we're going to have homeless people, we need to provide the services for them. That's what they decided on in Melbourne some 50 years ago.
That's what we don't do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
What we're not doing here.
No, we don't.
But they decided on this in the other states, that they were going to have the homeless people who are actively living on the streets, that they were going to need to provide the facilities for them. But we haven't got that here.
No, it's very tough to be homeless in South Australia, that's for sure.
But it's not because it's not wanted. It's not because there's a lack of people who would like to do this. You know, a lack of churches or a lack of services or charities. It's because, as we know, they don't want it. They don't allow it. They're kicking services out of the city. Food services, you know,
It's all a threat, isn't it?
Hands of hope. It is. It's a threat to
Yeah.
the agencies who are collecting the big funding and the big donations.
Well, I mean,
it's not in their interest to have anybody else doing it, and they lose clients.
Just in our little area, you know, I was taken to task by the local Salvation Army for wanting to give food on weekends, which was what they weren't doing because there was a gap in services.
Exactly right.
And I got told, you know, not so nicely, that I was enabling people, and you know.
Yet when the Rotary Club done that.
Yeah,
they were assisted. They were assisted by the Salvation
Army. Yeah, and yet I was enabling people because they saw me as a threat, obviously, which is so ridiculous. But anyway, we're going to have to leave it there, Chris. I'm so sorry to people that missed the first video that we had to delete. So we sort of started on the back foot tonight and didn't get covered what we really wanted to cover in the first place because it threw us having to stop the video. But we'll certainly do another one soon before Christmas. Thank you very much again, Chris, for your wisdom. And I put out a challenge to the Minister and her team and any other politician that actually wants to learn about what's needed in our city as far as homelessness to bring us even in line or close to the other states. Please reach out to Chris Adams. You can find him on Facebook and sit down and get into his head because he's so full of information and could probably give you a lot of insight on what you need to do to lessen the suffering of homeless people in South Australia. Thank you, Chris, once again for your time. Sonia. I really appreciate it. And yeah, sorry about the kerfuffle before with the phone. And we will do this again soon. Hopefully people find this a little bit enlightening. Thanks, Chris. You can press finish whenever you like.